Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Frank Gambino, the Senior Marketing Manager at Transflo, and I'm proud to be introducing the topic today, how to be road ready with Fleetworthy, Part 2. In a prior session, we did cover some of the overarching benefits of the Fleetworthy brand and some of the amazing tools that they offer as part of their portfolio. Today, we're joined by experts who will go over Drivewyze and Haul. And before we get too far into it, I do want to go over just a few housekeeping items. Questions are, of course, welcomed and encouraged. Please feel free to submit all questions as you think of them through the presentation. The Q&A button is the easiest way to get them over. Questions, of course, can be also asked in the chat. And a recording of today's session will be made available after the conclusion of our presentation. Please note that any reference to rates, costs, or marketing strategies do not reflect a specific offer by the parties who are presenting on today's session. With that, I'm going to turn things over to our in-house expert, Mr. Danny Goldstein.
Thanks, Frank. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Danny Goldstein. I'm the Vice President of Sales Engineering here at Transflo, so I have the honor of talking about all the products in the Transflo portfolio. Ones we're incredibly excited about every single day are the ones that Tim Henry, who's the co-founder of Haul by Fleetworthy, will be joining us to talk about today, and also Francis Kilgore, who's the Vice President of Business Development and Channel Management at Fleetworthy. And guys, since this is our second session, should this be like Fleetworthy 2 or Fleetworthier? I don't know. We've got to get a good name for this as we go. But really appreciate you guys being here today, and thank you so much for joining us to talking not just to us, but our clients and how you can help them in the field. Great. And Frank, you can go to the next slide, please. Okay. So when we talk about unlocking the power of Transflo, unlocking the power of our partners, it really is a partnership. When you look at what Transflo does in the field, and what we're focused on, safety of our drivers, efficiency of our drivers, making sure that no matter what happens, that they're supported in real time. And we'll talk a little bit about that today with both Tim and Francis. But what we want to do is we want to look at what happens for a driver. A driver has 900 things they have to do every day. So how do we help them with that? How do we make them safer when they're out in the field? And one of the ways we do that is consolidating great tools together so the driver never has to look for the safest and best operational tools in the industry. So whether it be for compliance and maintenance, whether it be making sure we get really good safety alerts and road alerts to our drivers, whether we're making them more efficient by being able to bypass those way stations, those are things that we can do in conjunction with our teammates here to make sure we keep your drivers on the road more often and in the safest way possible. So next slide, please. Okay, so you're already using us for your workflow or for your telematics or for your document automation, but Transflo knows that we can't do everything. And it's much better to bring in the expertise in the field. And we want to show you several ways we do that today. So Haul, making sure you have that compliance and all the other tools that we have here, and then these safety alerts from Drivewyze. I can't tell you how many times we've turned these on for customers, and almost immediately they pay benefits. They pay dividends on day one. And that's the real beauty of the integration between Drivewyze and Transflo, is these are things that can happen next day for your drivers. There's not long setups. There's not a lot of work to be done. We can turn them on tomorrow at no cost to you for you to try out, and your drivers are getting benefits the very next day. So I'm really excited to show you how these systems work together. I'm really excited to show you what they bring to the table. And I'm going to turn this over to Tim and Francis now after this slide. We appreciate everyone joining today, and please, as many questions in the chat as you can give us. We'd love to hear them. All right, team, take it away.
Thanks, Danny. And greetings, everyone who's joined today. I'm really excited to really highlight how Haul can really, at the end of the day, help you really manage the compliance, maintenance, and safety of your organization. As Danny alluded to, there's just a lot of things that go on, not only on the driver's side, but also the back office side. As a fleet operator, you need to make sure that your drivers, your assets are road ready and ready for dispatch. And that's primarily the number one thing we focus here at Haul. Haul really is focused on making sure that your fleet as an organization, your drivers as core personnel and team members, and your assets are compliant with DOT standards, but also compliant with internal compliance standards you've set up to make sure that you're operating to the best of your ability. Some of the tactical things that Haul provides out of the box is the ability to, one, manage driver qualification files of your drivers. We really help taking the nuanced management of drug and alcohol program management, and really help fleets to self-serve. I think a lot of times when fleets are out there on the road, they always have to say, if I was pulled over today, would a DOT officer put me out of service? And so being able to understand how the federal government is looking at you and say, hey, is this a risky fleet? Should I pull them over? It's one of the cornerstones of what we focus on in giving visibility to CSA data and basic scores for our fleets. And when we touch about vehicle maintenance and automated alerts, these go hand in hand, where at the end of the day, we have a lot of things that we have to manage and even more equipment. So being able to make sure that you're getting ahead of any annual inspections that are due of your tractor, your trailer, or any vehicle, but also making sure that you're getting ahead and going a step further to making sure that you're not just following the guidelines, but also getting ahead of them. So, because at the end of the day, a truck that's not operational is a truck that's not generating revenue for your operations. Next slide. Just a quick demo, again, not to take too much time today, but one of the core design principles here at Haul is really making it managing compliance self-serve. This is pretty much kind of what you expect from the Transflo team as well. How do we make it super seamless for me to request a document and review it, approve it, store it, monitor it? Again, these are the cornerstone features that you have relied on Transflo. And in the Haul world, we really take that kind of mindset same, being able to request a document from a driver that's currently on the road, validate it, make sure that it's abide by DOT standards. But not only that, making sure that there's continuous monitoring of your drivers. And the things that we're really focused on, not just from giving you an app to do a new thing, but actually embedding DOT know-how within the application. I think at the end of the day, we all, we don't go to college to maybe understand DOT regulations. We actually rely on best-in-class software to embed that knowledge within the system to tell me, hey, what may I be missing? And we're human. If there's times that we just don't have enough coffee in a day, does it catch anything? Can it make sure that the moments where I'm maybe a little tired, can it catch something I'm not catching on myself, and ensuring that when I approve that driver to join my fleet, that they are actually road ready? Next slide. Oop, Francis, I'll throw it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim, and thank you, everybody. So when we work through the the Haul solutions to make sure that you are drive ready, dispatch ready, road ready. Now we're going to flip into talking through what's happening on the road and making sure that while your drivers are out on the road, they're as safe as possible. Again, same theme in terms of how Transflo has really worked with us to make sure that the driver experience is top of mind and seamless. Automagical is how I like to describe it, which really means that we're not one more thing that the driver has to remember to do at the start of the day. It's going to work for them straight out of the box without any additional steps. And then when we look at things like Drivewyze Free, again, in partnership with Transflo and with our state agency partners, we're able to address concerns that impact all fleets on a regular basis and make sure that the driver isn't in an environment where something sneaks up on them. The worst thing we want is for somebody to come over the top of a crest of a hill and see traffic stopped in front of them. That has to be a nightmare for any driver. So the goal of the Drivewyze Free solution is to provide absolutely free service on known hazards on the roadway through partnerships with Transflo and with state agencies. So as Danny mentioned before, really easy to get set up, no subscription cost. And the goal for us is to reduce fatalities on the roadway. Our partnerships are really focused around safety, and this is how we're proving it to the industry, which is really around making sure that that things are not catching a driver off guard. The other thing that we highly focus on is making sure that the alerts are contextual and important for the driver in that moment. So we're acutely aware of how much noise can happen in a cab, how much is already like beeping or buzzing. We don't want to be a thing that a driver ignores. So we really make sure that those are pared down to the most impactful, most relevant alerts only, so that we're not contributing to alert fatigue or anything like that. On the next slide, we have a little bit of an example for you in terms of what it looks like from a driver for their day-to-day. And this is how all of our software is integrated. So whether it's the free service or our bypass service or the paid safety service, it's all operating in the same way. It's all using the GPS data that's provided from the device to make sure that we know where the truck is when they're approaching an alert area, and then providing that alert straight on the tablet so that there's nothing that the driver has to do. It will auto dismiss, or they can tap anywhere one time on the screen to dismiss any alert. So again, we're only alerting where the driver really needs to know about things, but if they're also looking at nav and want to get back to that screen, a single tap anywhere, again, very compliant in terms of safety at the forefront. So we've chatted through kind of how it works and the free service. If we go into the next slide, we can look at the service that starts to really tailor itself to your fleet. So the free service is any fleet, any driver on the road is concerned with these elements. The Safety Plus service is the most concerning areas or issues for a given fleet. So if you are looking at, your coaching data that's coming off of that, and you're identifying specific areas in your fleet that you want to improve, then we can create custom notifications for those specific areas. We can also look at contextual elements like the customers that you deliver to. So, don't hit the pole in that customer's yard is an actual alert that exists in the system. Because once you have 1 or 2 or 3 incidents in the same area, it becomes very frustrating in the back office side and on the safety side, and it becomes very problematic from a customer perspective. So you're trying to make sure your customers get the best service from you, and we're there to help you with that. So the custom safety zones are a huge piece that allow you to contextualize that safety program in cab from your operational data. It also includes speeding alerts. So we know the best way for enforcement to stop speeding is ticketing, but that's not always the best way for the fleet. So if you're speeding if the driver is speeding in a known speed zone, then they'll get an alert that says that they're speeding in that zone and that it's a high infraction area. So it can really help to tailor and slow down those vehicles, not monitoring their constant speed all the time or beeping at them, but letting them know when they're speeding in areas that are really impactful to your safety scores. And then the other piece are cargo theft alerts. So at end of the service hours, you need to find somewhere to pull over and rest, and you pulled over in a place that is known for high theft. The driver will receive that alert so they can take some preventative action. So maybe they can back in against a wall, they can park under a light, or move the vehicle itself to a safer area. So again, making sure that not only the load is secure, but the driver is safe and secure as well. So really looking at taking, from core on the road safety pieces to even more impactful into the fleet perspective. And we see some really meaningful impacts. The biggest piece that we can measure is a reduction of speed in the high risk areas. And if you can have that driver aware of that high risk area before they're in it, and they can, let off the gas a little bit, a small reduction in speed is a meaningful impact in reducing any bad outcomes or incidents. So we've looked really through how we can move from compliance to in-cab safety. And the next slide that we're going to hop into is really the benefit of those positive safety programs. So when you are working to reduce the safety score, your CSA score, one of the big benefits that we see is more bypass opportunities. So one of the bigger contributing factors to a state agency's requirement around pull-ins at a weigh station is that safety score. So the lower your safety score is, the more opportunities for bypass that you'll have. And we can see those benefits clearly from your compliance score, your CSA basics, and the impact of those on your score, and then the driving behavior that your drivers are working on. And again, software works the same. Again, it's that seamless driver experience. So regardless of what is happening in cab, the drivers don't have to worry about touching buttons or making it work. It's going to work for them. So integrated seamlessly with Transflo. And then every piece that we look at, every service that we provide to a customer, we want to make sure that it's providing measurable benefits to the fleet, to your operations. We know that it's a challenging industry, and there's not excess margins kind of floating around for everybody. So we want to make sure that anything that you're investing in with us pays dividends back to your operation. So we look at, from a bypass perspective, we look at that time savings, fuel savings as meaningful benefits that come back into the fleet. And all of that reporting is available to any of our customers. So you can continue to monitor that impact in your operations. And I think on the next slide, it talks a little bit about some of those benefits that we expect to see. So if we see an average truck count of like 100 in a fleet, we can estimate that we could save 50 hours or more from the pre-clear service. So that's the time to like pull off the highway, slow down, go through the station, pull back onto speed and carry on. That's assuming that there is no inspection. So that 50 hours of time saved is straight through just that weigh time, not even getting pulled over to do an inspection. We can see meaningful improvements in the CSA score. So we chatted through that a little bit already, but between the combination of making sure that the compliance piece is there and the on-the-road safety is there, we can see meaningful improvements for our customers in terms of that CSA score itself. And then also in terms of the time that you're investing from a back office perspective in being audit ready or working through audits, making sure that you're compliant and not worried when those things happen. So meaningful benefits from our perspective are important, not pre-sale, but as a customer, that you're really getting those benefits every single day. And then really trying to work together as partners to make sure that that's effective and efficient, again, for the drivers in cab, but also from a back office perspective. I think we can move to that next slide. We're moving quickly today. Everybody was a little bit worried that 30 minutes was not a lot of time, so we'll have a good amount of time for questions if those are starting to come in. But really this slide is helping to visualize what we've chatted through already today, which is everything logged in automatically. Again, so not a thing that a driver needs to think of. As a fleet manager, you're confident that the drivers and assets are dispatch ready, compliant, ready to go. So before they even hit the road, you have that confidence. And then when that driver is on the road, you can maintain that confidence with them, knowing that you're essentially in the cab with them from a safety perspective and that they're operating as efficiently as possible, making sure that you're meeting your customer expectations at the end of the day. So we're ready for questions.
I think the biggest takeaway that I have is do not hit poles while you're driving a truck. So I'm glad that we covered that at the very beginning.
I think do not hit anything while you're driving the truck is the goal.
It's good, but yeah, we'll be very specific there. So a couple of things that I do want to point out. One, incredibly easy to set up a lot of your systems here, right? We know on the compliance side, Tim, there's always some work to do to make sure our drivers are DQ files, and we get calls daily about how do we better handle our DQ files when we're out in the field. But I think what our clients are most surprised with, Francis, on the stuff you talked about, the safety alerts, the Drivewyze analytics, all the things that we can turn on for your fleets, they're almost push button at this point with Transflo Mobile. We turn them on, we set your fleet up. As a fleet goes, you want it today, you can start looking at your analytics tomorrow. I think, Dan, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but you talked before about how drivers save up to 50 hours a week. And if we take 50 hours a week and we do simple math, and that's 12 hours, they 5 days per week by using weigh station bypass. And that's a huge advantage to your drivers in the field. But we also don't say you have to buy everything immediately, and not every driver needs it, right? So the analytics can be turned on. So talk to us a little bit about the analytics piece for those who haven't been here before, and how we can use that in the Drivewyze portal to help decide where the value is for a fleet.
Absolutely. So the analytics is a mode of the software, which means that we can still provide essentially the same service without the alerts. So we would do the same kind of screening. The vehicle is at this weigh station. The weigh station is open. These are the attributes of the vehicle that the station would check. This is the safety score at the time. And we'll collect whether or not we would have given the truck a bypass command. And if we would have, then we track that. And if we wouldn't have, then we're tracking that along with why we wouldn't have. And then we are not providing any UI to law enforcement. So law enforcement isn't seeing anything about that vehicle. And we're not providing any instruction to the driver. So the driver doesn't know that this service is running. So that way, as a fleet operator, you can really evaluate whether or not your operations are a good candidate, your drivers or your vehicles are a good candidate for the bypass program, without getting your drivers excited. about the opportunity of bypass, and without having any law enforcement impact. So driver operates on their same day to day, but we'll collect all of that data for you in the background. And within 2 weeks, you usually get a pretty good sense of where you're driving, and whether or not that would provide a good bypass ROI for you. Because again, our goal collectively as groups is to make sure that we're providing the solutions that make an impact in your business. And we don't want to be selling things to customers that don't need them. It's not good business from our perspective. So we want to make sure we have the tools available to help identify whether or not it's a good fit.
Yeah, it's a big win because, again, you get to decide ahead of time, you know, where it can be applied, and you can apply it by truck or by driver, correct? I mean, this isn't something you have to do fleet-wide either.
Exactly. So it's gonna alert based on what's in cab. So it's essentially kind of associated to the vehicle that it's there for. But 100%, if there are a number of vehicles that maybe run locally or smaller routes or in a specific jurisdiction that has less way stations, so less impact, then definitely there's no need to purchase a solution that doesn't work on those vehicles.
Great. Yeah, that's huge. And I know that a lot of our clients love to test it out and see where it can be applied for their fleet. So it's good to know.
Yeah. And it is a huge driver benefit. So we consistently survey our fleets and our drivers, and it always ranks in top 5 in terms of things that I want is a bypass program from the fleet that I run for.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about the safety alerts because I think those are so important. A really good example, you talked about hitting a pole, but that are completely at the driver's fault. Typically, those are really at fault for drivers. So those are alerts that you can have. And those are things today, we're going to a camera environment for our truck drivers. They have cameras in there, but low bridges are not something that's common in cameras. And that's something that Fleetworthy does really good well with their safety alerts. So is that the safety alert features? Anything else you wanted to point out there that are specific to a use case?
Yeah, the only thing I would point out is that you do have the opportunity to, from a fleet perspective, decide this alert is maybe redundant to something else that we're getting in our operation, to that point on the camera piece. So if your navigation is providing you with bridge alerts, then you can turn off the bridge alert. So you make sure that they're not getting duplicate pieces. So just as you can tailor to add alerts that make the most sense to your business, you can also tailor the alerts to reduce the alerting that is maybe duplicate. And also you could, for example, have a set of new drivers that maybe get all of the alerts, and a set of veteran drivers that don't need those alerts, or a set of veteran drivers or the drivers that drive the same route on a regular basis. They likely already know that there's a steep grade or a tight turn. So you don't necessarily have to alert them when they're driving the same route every day. So really it is tailored to make sure that you have a great driver experience and that they're getting information that they need.
Yeah, and that driver experience is so important because we want the drivers to know that we're supporting them, right? This isn't punitive. This isn't something that we're judging them on. It's something to help keep them safer. And I think another way that Drivewyze does that really well is with the weather alerting, because those are things outside of a driver's control. It can be incredibly unpredictable what weather is like. So maybe a little bit about the weather alerts that are inside your.
Absolutely. So you would never choose to dispatch a driver through a storm. Of course, like that wouldn't be your goal at the start of the day. But of course, weather moves. And so when we look at being responsive to those conditions and making sure that as a driver enters a storm zone or severe weather conditions, that they're aware of that, and then you can apply your operational kind of rule set to that. So if you know that the driver is driving into a high wind area, you might say, like, we would rather that you pull over and check in and let us know that you're not going to make the delivery on time, because it's, there's a cost to not making your delivery on time. There's a higher cost to losing the load on the side of the road. So making sure that we're able to provide alerting, again, contextual to the area that they're in. So if you're not driving into a storm zone or severe weather area, you're not going to be alerted in cab. But if you are in that area, then we're going to be able to provide the driver with that information. And our partnership with NOAA is really providing a lot of that data. So we're using National Weather Service to understand things like severe weather, high winds, hurricanes, things that are, or winter storm warnings, things that are really impactful. We can also be responsive to state agency issues. So for example, a terrible storm makes a road impassable. that is also data that can be absorbed into the system so that your drivers aren't going to end up stuck for hours in a location that they can't move on from. So yeah, again, from a weather perspective, very contextual and focused on the things that will be most impactful to the driver's day.
Excellent. And Tim, we had a question for you, I think, in the chat here. So what are the top compliance reports that fleets need from Haul?
Yeah, I'm going to interpret that in my version of it and as, hey, what are compliance reports that a fleet can generate with Haul? So just as a refresher, Haul allows you to manage core compliance documents around your company, around your drivers, and around your assets. And with that being said, since we have visibility to information around tax forms, insurance policies, we can track like, hey, what documents are about to expire? So those are all customizable reports that fleets can pull around their company. On the driver and assets, just the same. You can pull a very clean report of, hey, what documents are about to expire the next 7, 30, 60 days, really customizable. We do generate a daily digest to help fleets stay on top of any tactical expirations that are coming up like the day of. So again, a lot of our expiration reports can be customized based on what the fleet needs. And it's, we allow them not only just to store, but also just download the raw data so they can create their own report. I think as we work with some of the largest fleets in North America, but also some of the smallest, every company is different and how they want to see this data changes. And sometimes, we may not be the best tool for them to kind of see what they want. So giving them access to their own data so they can pivot it and really start finding some trends is key. So again, we have a lot of out-of-the-box reporting out of the system, but if there's a fleet who ever needed some additional support, we can really allow them to download that raw data and kind of do with it as they wish. Hopefully to answer it, if not, feel free to follow back up and we'll make sure we'll get you the exact answer you're looking for.
Danny, you're muted.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for being on today, Francis and Tim. Thank you for joining us and helping talk to our clients. If anyone needs anything from Transflo, of course, it's contact@transflo.com. Thank you for joining us today and have a great Thursday, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you
for having us.
Bye now.